There we go, that's me. All right, hi, my name is Thomas Korte. I am the founder of AngelPad and very loud. Can you turn it down, or do you want me to move it down? There you go. Just before I tell you more about how I got here and what I do, just a quick show of hands. Like, who is actually an accelerator or incubator in the room? Oh, okay, great, good. And then we have seed funds now. Good, that's really good because I think I do speak a lot to what makes an incubator and certainly my experience, building an incubator. AngelPad is a seed stage incubator, a very early stage. We're usually always first money into companies. It's very boutique. We run 12 companies twice a year in New York and in San Francisco. It is run by 2 people, and that's it. We don't have mentors. We don't have a lot of other people involved. We keep it very, very small, and we don't plan to scale it. But how did I get here? I spent 7 years at Google and had this big question afterwards, so now what? Leaving Google is hard by itself. Finding the next thing is even harder. And I found myself in my mid-30s. I kind of made some money that I could spend on things, lots of people that started companies. So I figured I'd become an angel investor. I go out and give people money when they have good ideas. And very quickly I found myself sitting at demo days, mostly at Y Combinator. This is back in 2008, 2009. And I want to take you back a little bit. And I know many of you probably heard some of these stories, but it's not that long ago that the Accelerator 2.0 started. And I'm saying 2.0 because we do have 1.0, which is the Idea Lab incubator accelerator that was turn of the millennia, which I'm not covering. It's really 2.0 starting with 2005, 2006, David Cohen with Techstars and Paul Graham with Y Combinator. You actually, next to Paul is Sam, if you see that. He was in the first Y Combinator class. And when you look at those programs, they both had similarities, but they also had very, very, very big differences. Paul started Y Combinator with the idea of kind of giving mostly college kids some money, around 10K or so, for the summer to work on something, and then to, if it works, maybe start a company in the fall. So the entire concept was really around kind of fairly young people hacking around, building a company. And I think that's a culture that YC has persisted, even though they of course have a lot more mature founders now, as we heard this morning, and not necessarily give them all 10K anymore. David, on the other hand, did something very different. And I think that's often forgotten, that Techstars' idea was really about building an ecosystem in a city or in a town that didn't have an entrepreneurial ecosystem. He started in Boulder. He ventured out to a couple of other places, including New York, at a time when in New York there really was a very, very small ecosystem, if any, a couple of years ago. And when you look at kind of like the years to come, 2010, AngelPad launched. Right around late 2009, I was starting to think about this. And there were a lot of things that I really did like about what Y Combinator did. There were a lot of things that I really liked about what Techstars did. And there were things that I thought could be radically improved. And I took kind of what I liked the best from both of those things, combined them, and added some other things to it that became AngelPad. And I think most notably, we focus on a very small set of companies. We spend a lot of time with them, really, working next to them every day in our office. And I thought that was very important. I do believe that people should be in the same room in this very intense time of starting a company. But in 2011, the exuberance kicked in, and everything went crazy. And I guess I had great timing because I just started the year before. But I think one of the biggest changes that I've seen was that venture capitalists really got into the seed game and used the seed stage as an option to buy ownership down the road. Not in like some malicious way of like, oh, I buy it now and then I have to force you to do something else, but really just to stick with the companies, to understand them. But their goal wasn't to give somebody 250K. Their goal obviously was to give them significantly more money down the road. Y Combinator did a collaboration with a couple of funds. We did it with Innovest and Sierra, giving companies an extra $100,000 on top of the original $15,000. And with the VC world coming to the table, the valuations increased, the amounts that people raised increased, and really because of those two things, everything kind of bumped up. And we're still, as you all know, kind of like are on this level up that is significantly higher than 2010 and before. And the last part was there are hundreds of incubators that were started. Elad, who's speaking next, actually had a April's Fool's joke back in 2010, 2009. It was called the Incubator Incubator. It's still online, incubator.com, I believe, which was the idea that you have an incubator to start an incubator. And it was a big laugh at the time. Now it actually seems quite real. It really could be done. There's literally thousands of incubators now. And there's relatively little accountability or even data to track them. But what we are today at, our reality in 2014, is that the ecosystem has matured, dramatically matured. No one is questioning anymore if incubators are here to stay. No one is asking, can a big company be built out of an incubator or accelerator? And by the way, I use the terms interchangeably. I know this is not what most people say. I think officially we are supposed to say accelerators now. MIT actually defined what it is. They did a study. This is the first quantitative study that was released earlier this year that actually took data from what they defined as an accelerator, which turned out to be 50 programs in the US. They got the data from everybody. So this is actually the only entity that we ever gave every single valuation, every single raise that we've ever had. Y Combinator did the same, Techstars did the same, BetaSpring, all the others. They released a study to actually see who does well and who is not doing so well. We've had the first programs failed or just not being able to have a second program for whatever reason it is. I think a lot of people realize it's actually much harder work than it looks like, and the appeal of getting 6% for the cheap that gets a lot of people into it might not be the reality when you actually run the program and have to sustain this over years and years, if not a decade or more. The other part that gets all of us, the investment community, quite excited is exits, and we've had some very significant exits. Heroku was sold for north of $300 million. Mopa, which was one of our companies, was sold to Twitter literally days before the IPO for reportedly some $350 million. And there are multiple billion-dollar companies that are now out, active, working well. Airbnb, Dropbox, Stripe, all doing very well. But what is the role of an accelerator? We take a lot of equity in a company, from a company. We as accelerators take 5 to 8, 10, in Europe, sometimes 15% of a company. And what is the role? And I think the academic answer is to help startup founders in the earliest stages to get to the next level and set companies on a path for long-term success. Sounds like an advertising, but I think that's what we all do. It doesn't matter if we're angels, seed funds, accelerators. Our role is always to get the companies to the next step. For me, it's much more simple than this. We help to build successful companies, and it really doesn't matter if it's about helping them find the right team, if it's about figuring out what is a big market to go after, what's an interesting product, what is something that is fundable today, what is something that is fundable in the future. Really, all those things. And we do that through this very high-impact 12-week mentor program. And when we talk about incubators, we often talk about this very specific time frame. These 12 weeks where people, from day one, everyone comes in excited, to demo day when everyone's out talking to investors. But I think it really extends far beyond that on both sides. And I'll talk about that in a second. But for me, when I look at what we do, what I do as an accelerator is to change the trajectory of a company just slightly at the very earliest stage. And over time, that actually has a dramatic impact both on the time to outcome and the amount of outcome that comes out of these companies. My goal is to change the trajectory by a couple %. I think we're actually doing much better than that. But so far, it's proven to work. One of the biggest part of running a successful accelerator is not necessarily only what's happening in those 12 weeks and beyond, but what's happening before. And I see my role as finding founders anywhere. One of the hardest things for anyone is to get access to you, to get a meeting, to talk to you. And I understand why, because you are all bombarded with emails from people that want to meet you for coffee mostly, sometimes for beer, if they're German or English, Australian. And you really have to say no 90% of the time. It's self-protection. You don't have the time. So you end up relying on a filter. And most investors rely on the filter of introductions. And though I think that is a decent filter, it filters out a lot of people that would do phenomenally well, but they don't have access to you as investors. So my role is to find them anywhere and have a very, very scalable process where they don't need an introduction to give me some information I can look at very quickly, filter, and then go further down, which is really the part that happens before AngelPad. So we run a program twice a year, 3 months roughly. Well, the 3 months in between, we are looking for companies, we're screening companies, and we're interviewing companies. And I think that's a really, really important part to get to these 12 that matter. Now, what is the role of an accelerator in the life cycle of a startup? We just talked about find and filter raw talent. There is talent everywhere. It's not just Google product managers, and I love them. We have, a third of our portfolio is ex-Google engineers and product managers. But there are people coming from all different places. Zane, actually, sorry, who I skipped over. Zane's a great example. Zane applied to AngelPad. He's from London. When they interviewed, so they didn't have enough money to fly over here, so they interviewed by Skype, which we sometimes do. We don't like it, but we do it. And they looked really, him and his co-founder looked really rough. They looked like something was going on. It was really loud outside. I was like, hey, what's that noise in the background? I'm like, oh, we haven't left our office in 4 days. There are riots outside. It was right during the 99% riots in East London. The office was there, and they literally locked themselves in. And it was the last team that we interviewed, and the program started 3 days later. And we told them in the call, OK, come on over, and they literally left within 3 days. This is not a founding team that could have landed here, get any meeting with any of you. If they would have gotten the meeting, you would have, after 4 minutes, known it's not the right company because they weren't ready. They weren't at the stage where they can talk to investors. And I think that's a lot of what we do, is get companies to the stage where they actually can talk to investors and have a real conversation, and not just that coffee meeting that most of you dread so much, where you committed to 20 minutes and wish after 2 minutes you could leave. The second part is really about defining the business to fit Silicon Valley ambitions. And sometimes it's refining, sometimes it's defining. If you are not from here, if you haven't been at Google or at Twitter or this crazy world of these 7 square miles, you really don't understand what the expectations is for a venture-backed company and what it means. One of my first questions I ask people is like, so, how is this going to be a billion-dollar company? I know it's such a cliche question, and I kind of hate the question. But the reaction is always so enduring and fun because they all kind of giggle and they're, oh, $1 billion. I'm like, no, really. If you don't have a chance of being $1 billion, don't go talk to these funds. Don't build a different company. Not everyone has to be a venture-backed company. We do exclusively focus on venture-backed companies, though. Preparing for fundraising. A huge part of what we do. So this, sometimes I'm accused of window dressing companies. I don't think that's at all what it is. It is, fundraising is a specific language that you all understand, that I understand, and a founder speaks one time in his life, maybe a couple times through other rounds. But there's certain things that you understand, I understand, they don't understand. I have founders calling me and say, oh, we had a great meeting with somebody. They were like, oh, I really enjoy talking to you. Keep me posted on your progress. I'm like, keep me posted on your progress. That is like a death sentence. Like they do not want to hear from you anymore, right? So I think a lot of that translation and getting everything ready to a point where it makes sense to meet investors. And then really the part that comes after AngelPad, which is this long-term support system, really the alumni. And I've only seen that kicking in the past year or so. It takes some time to build that up. If you're a founder, it's very, very lonely. Right? There's very few founders around. There's very few people that you can actually spill your heart to. And oftentimes investors say, oh, I started a company. I've gone through the same thing. It's like, this is 15 years ago. Like, the world was a different place when you started a company, right? You do need to have the people that started a company last year, and went through this and heard those excuses and this and went through the ups and the lows of fundraising and building a company and hiring and firing and working with recruiters and firing recruiters and hiring a PR company and firing a PR company, all those things. And the alumni network really does that. At AngelPad now we have around 200 alumni, so it's not a huge network, but there are companies that have exited for a lot of money. They're now investing in those companies. There's founders that have failed. There's founders that have sold to companies. Give me just a quick highlight on the things that I've learned through the seven cohorts of AngelPad, 85 companies, about 15 exits. Oops, sorry. I think you start with a huge applicant pool. As an accelerator, your role is to make that pool larger every single time, because it's very easy math. The bigger the funnel is at the top, the more you can filter, and the more better companies come out at the bottom. Have this really, really intense mentorship, like true intense mentorship, that with people that understand what you do and that are with you every day. The mentorship is hard. When you start a company, everyone wants to support you. Everyone's like, yeah, great, like this looks great, or why don't you move this button, all that. Like, this doesn't help you, right? What helps you is the people that say, look, this is crap, right? Like, this doesn't work. Like, this, I wouldn't do this. Like, how many people have you talked to? 3? Why not 30, right? And I don't think you can do that if you meet somebody every 2 weeks or even every week. It's just really, really hard to do. You have to build this really, really close relationships with founders to be able to do that, and to really help them and make this 12-week feel like 3 years. Collaborative founders, alumni. We decline people frequently because we don't think they fit in. We don't think they're team players in the greater sense. If I don't like working with somebody, they're not going to come to AngelPad because I have to work with them. So it's a big part of that. And the last part really is, and I hope we have time for some conversation around it, is the investor relationship. I think often we look at these stages and be like, OK, so we have this part, and we hand it off here, and we hand it off here. We go from pre-seed to incubator to seed to A to B. And I really look at it in a very different way. I very much look at it as, I see myself as a conduit to the venture community, but I also see the venture community being a conduit to us. You all meet founders that you like, but they're not ready for your money. I mean, you can give them money and be sure that it will go nowhere, but maybe 6 months later they are ready for that. So we have a lot of investors now sending us companies or just telling companies, hey, you should consider this, because they're just not ready for real funding yet. And with that, we have a couple minutes left for question if you like. This is my email. I'm also on Twitter. I am one of those investors that is on Twitter. Thomas K. and Thomas at angelpad.org. But if you have any questions, fire away. Anyone, just speak up.
When you recruit new applicants, what are your main criteria that you look at when you do your filtering?
I don't think I have criteria that I kind of like checkbox. A lot of it is very much gut feeling. We ask for a video. It's just a feeling that blink like within a very short period, like within probably 10, 15 seconds, I know if it's like a fit, generally speaking, and then I look into what their backgrounds are. For me, it's very important that people are passionate about what they do, and you all look at the same things. If someone is opportunistic, I don't know, financing retirement homes and online platform because they think there's a lot of money in it, I'm not interested. If your grandma died because you couldn't afford a retirement home and you want to fix the problem, I am interested. So really passionate people. This is the long run. We're at day one. We're not even at day one with many of them, and it's going to be 7 or 10 years that you work on this. So if I don't see the passion, if I don't see the effort, if we ask people a comprehensive application, or asking for a lot of questions, like I want people to take the effort to fill them out. There is no short answers there. So all those things. Sorry, that was. Yeah.
What is the main motivation for the mentors to join you guys?
So we don't have mentors. Our model does not rely on mentors. There's 2 people that run AngelPad day to day. It's me and my wife, and we are the mentors for the companies. We do have people coming in, to meet the companies throughout the time, but it's not to mentor them. It's to talk to them about something very specific, and some of them then have follow-on meetings. But we don't. I think unlike really any accelerator, we do not rely on any external mentors for the mentoring. So there doesn't have to be an incentive.
Speaking of sourcing, why you guys have some advantage? Basically, you can get better quality teams compared with other VC firms because they have a sort of army of people just actively looking for deals.
So the question is, why do we have an advantage?
Why you guys can find probably better quality teams?
I don't know if we can find better qualities. I think we can, but I think we're just at a different stage than most investors. Most of the companies, if they would come to an investor at the stage when they apply to AngelPad, they would be turned down flat. Most of them are not at a stage where they have a coherent idea of what the business is, or if they do, it's often not a big enough business to be fundable. One last question. Or not? Anyone? Yes?
Can you talk about the support that you provide for your alumni?
The support we provide for the alumni. It's a very informal network. We have a mailing list, and they have my phone number. And the alumni themselves organize stuff. So we had we had a team that went up in a ski house last summer. We have happy hour. Someone sends out an email and says, hey, let's get together. It's incredibly informal. It's still such a small group. The founders actually almost all know each other from these events. It's only 200 people. It's still small enough to be very informal. We don't need technology yet to manage it. And frankly, I think that text and phone works quite well, at least for me. Thank you.
Thank you.